also handle seeing more of our teams win bowl games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last night, ECU takes care of business in Birmingham.
That's right.
First time since the 2013 season, ECU picks up a bowl win 53-29 over Coastal Carolina. And it's not that ECU won the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that Holton Ahlers, fifth-year senior, local kid, had a great game and a great moment to go out on. That was cool. You know what it was, Dennis? And no one's ever confused me for an ECU fan. And I do.
Should they?
But the Pirates are passionate.
Yeah.
All right?
Oh, yes.
And I actually am. I'm one of those people who I like it when ECU's good.
Me too.
And going back to this, even before Steve Logan days, I like seeing them not only win a bowl game, but put a 50 on somebody in a bowl game. Like, that just felt right.
It did. It was nice because a North Carolina-based team beat a South Carolina-based team. I'm always for that.
I was learning this yesterday.
You learned this yesterday.
You
I'm
have
100% for
beefs
this.
with state flags and South Carolina in general.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I mean, they did fire on a federal fort and start a civil war, so
whatever.
You know, I mean, that's part of their legacy. But
yeah, sure, it is. But back to the game itself, I think, like you mentioned, Holton Ahlers, local kid,
had a
that
game.
Starter
Man. Had a game.
Had a great game. You know, honestly, he might find himself in a training camp. I doubt he's going to get drafted. He might find himself in a training camp as a fourth guy who might play in some preseason games. But honestly, for him, that might be it in terms of his competitive football career. And to go out on that note, for him, the yards and the amount of points that he put up, fantastic way to end your career. And you know what? He'll never probably have to buy a meal at Sup Dogs ever again.
Let's hope he didn't have to before that. But 300 yards last night, 5 touchdowns in the air. He also ran for a touchdown. ECU wins 53-29. They finished the season 8-5. So I want to ask the question about Duke and Carolina. Duke playing right now. They have a 10-7 lead over UCF in the Military Bowl. Carolina plays at 8 o'clock tonight, plays against Oregon. My question for you, and we'll ask about Duke and Carolina, what does it mean for ECU to win the bowl game in the way that they did last night? What does it mean for them? I mean, because we've seemed to have lost what bowls mean and what they don't mean. That also felt very old school. I mean, most of the ECU guys played. They looked good, and Holton Ahlers talked about all the time off they had to get ready for the game was great. So what does it mean to ECU to win the game?
For ECU, I think it's the fact that you mentioned, haven't won a bowl game since 2013.
Right.
Okay, so it's been 9 years, 9 seasons.
Yeah.
For them, it's big in taking the next step to where we know or expect their program to be, right? Because now the expectations, okay, you had 8 wins this season, including the bowl game. The expectations now, you should win 9 next season. If not regular season, at least in the bowl game. So for them, it's taking the step in the right direction. It's taking the step in the right direction for Mike Houston and what he's trying to build at East Carolina. I always say with bowl games, it's relative for every individual school. It's relative for every team. Like if for Carolina today, if they lose, okay, fine. I don't think it really is. If they get blown out, that's a different story. Duke, that game I think matters more for Duke. The game they're playing right now, they're up 10-7. That game matters more for Duke than what UNC, their bowl game. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but again, it's all relative. East Carolina specifically, this is a big stepping stone for their program. And I mentioned yesterday, they compete against Coastal Carolina for recruits. Coastal Carolina, a lot of people are going to look and say, well, they got a new head coach, their quarterback's leaving as well. This is a reset for what that program has been built to over the last 5 years. East Carolina can sit there and say, hey, guys, they're rebooting. We're taking it to another level. So I think a win like that yesterday, I think it's big for ECU and good for them because I think if they're good, I think it helps State, it helps Carolina, it helps Duke. Because if they're good, that means that the other schools, the triangle schools, have to raise their game to stay above them.
Here's ECU coach Mike Houston on the Pirates win over Coastal Carolina.
I just, what a great night for Pirate Nation. And just so excited for our players, excited for our fans, excited for our institution. This has been the goal since we got here. Was to get ECU back to winning and back to being in bowl contention and back to winning bowl games. And so tonight's a very significant achievement for a lot of people. And just I couldn't be more proud not only of these two up here, but of this entire senior class because they've been here since day one, and they'll tell you it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do, and we probably got mad at each other a lot, especially those first couple of years. But we stuck together and just appreciate their leadership, appreciate their dedication, and appreciate the way they prepared our team tonight.
It's Mike Houston after ECU's 53-29 win over Coastal Carolina. Coastal's quarterback did play. It was a good game in that first quarter.
Yeah.
Grayson McCall falls on his head on a touchdown. They did the right thing. I loved seeing what they did, actually. Mm-hmm. He's not going to play for them next year. He's already said he's not playing for them next year. He has they put him in the concussion protocol. They didn't try to do anything crazy with him. He sat out the rest of the game. It also gives their next quarterback a chance to get some reps too. But I was happy to see that, because a lot of what we're doing now with bowl games is, well, I'm in the portal. I'm not going to play because I want to be ready for my next team, or I'm not going to play because I'm going to get ready for the NFL draft.
Sure.
And I don't blame anybody who says, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. That's when Christian McCaffrey did it all those years ago in the Sun Bowl. It was like this big outcry.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, you quit on your teammates and you're not committed to them. And it's like, hey man, cool. I gave them, in Christian McCaffrey's case, the other 3 years of my career, and now I want to do what's best for me. Because we saw the linebacker who ended up from Notre Dame, ended up playing for the Dallas Cowboys, tore his ACL, cost him a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So nobody wants to be that guy.
Jake Butt, who played at Michigan, it was a tight end. A lot of people were projecting him maybe first, if not second round pick, tears his ACL, drops all the way down to the later rounds. He's not even in the league anymore.
So Carolina tonight taking on Oregon out in the Holiday Bowl. That game's at 8 o'clock. They're a 2-touchdown underdog because basically their whole defense has said we're in the portal. Yeah. Most of them are not playing. Drake May is playing. Josh Downs, the All-American receiver, not playing. I still think this game is going to be a shootout, a bonanza, a points bonanza, a true Holiday Bowl. I'm a little bit older than you, but when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of games on TV, all right? And you almost never saw West Coast teams other than the annual UCLA-USC game and whenever USC played Notre Dame. So it was a real treat to see BYU show up in the Holiday Bowl. Yeah. And they did every year with Norm Chow's offense. And they slung that thing around the yard like no one else, okay? If you don't follow college football, BYU was the precursor. BYU is where Mike Leach, learned the air raid offense or evolved the air raid offense off of what BYU used to do. So it was a real treat to watch the Holiday Bowl growing up. So I actually think tonight's game with Carolina and Oregon has that type of potential. I don't know a ton about Oregon. I'm not going to lie to you. I watched the Oregon State game. I know they lost to their rival. I watched them against USC. I watched them against Utah. So I watched them some as a top 25 voter, but I don't know the ins and outs of them. It's interesting, though, to hear Mac Brown talk about Dan Lanning, because Dan Lanning, remember, was Georgia's defensive coordinator last year when the Dogs won the national championship. Lanning gets up in the first game. He gets his doors blown out by Georgia down in Atlanta. But this is Mac Brown talking about the first-year Oregon coach.
We're excited to play Oregon. Dan's done an amazing job. First-year coaches, it's really hard. You didn't recruit most of those guys, and he goes out in his first game and has a tough game with Georgia, and then pulls them all back together and regroups, and that could have been a turning point for him in a bad way, because he didn't know a lot of those kids. And he's done an amazing job of pulling it together and keeping it together and putting himself in a position to have a great team. So what we look at this game is we're trying to take another step in our program. You got Notre Dame, top 10 team. You got Oregon, top 10 team. You got Clemson, top 10 team. For us to get where we want to go, we've got to play the best to be the best.
Again, I like the Heels' chances tonight, at least to put some points up in that game. I don't know what Oregon's motivation is. I'm going to be honest with you. I know Carolina's missing most of their defense. Their defense wasn't that good this year.
Yeah.
So these new guys could be hungry. They could show up in this game, and they could show out.
Chance to prove yourself. Simple as that.
Absolutely.